All right, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about chapter 10 in Animal Farm, which just so happens to be the final chapter. And by now, you should have read chapter 10, and you also should have completed the questions for chapter 10 that are posted in the Google Classroom. For our lesson today, we are going to be covering some literary elements in chapter 10, specifically symbol, theme, and irony. We are going to go over the plot events in chapter 10, and like always, we are going to dig a little deeper and touch on some of the overarching concepts in chapter 10. So, for your literary terms, first we have symbol, and as you know, a symbol is an object or an idea that has meaning in itself, but it also takes on a second and deeper meaning. So, in this chapter, we still have the symbol of clothing, and earlier in the book, the clothing symbolized tools of oppression. And now the clothing symbolizes privilege, and the pigs are privileged. They're privileged to wear this clothing, and it also elevates their status among the other animals. We now have our second theme of the story that has unfolded, and the theme is the universal message. Our second theme that we're going to touch on today, and it's taken a long time to get here, is power and how absolute power corrupts absolutely. And what that means is if someone has absolute power, if they have all of the power and it's not divided and it's not checked and balanced, they basically have carte blanche to do whatever they want. And there's a lot of danger in one person running the whole show, not being questioned, not being vetted, um, refusing to take advice. So, in this chapter, we really see the effects of Napoleon having sole power on this farm and going unchecked and unbalanced. He does absolutely whatever he wants at the expense of everyone. And lastly, we have irony in this chapter. As you know, there are three types of irony, and in general, irony is the opposite of what you would expect. Our three types that we learned about this year are situational irony, verbal irony, and dramatic irony. And in this chapter, we are going to focus on our situational irony. The opposite outcome is what we would expect. It's stated in chapter 10 that the animals were comforted by the very fact that at least no creature among them went up on two legs. And then it further goes on to say that no creature among them required the other animals to call him master. And just a few sentences later, that all comes to a screeching halt. We would expect that the animals would be equal, and we would certainly expect that animals would walk upon all four legs if they have four legs. However, that is certainly not what happened in chapter 10. All right, so let's get to the events that did happen in chapter 10. By now, many years have passed on the farm, and there's really no memory of the way things were back in Jones's day. A lot of the animals have passed away. Jones has passed away, and there's a small group of animals that remember things before the rebellion and the purpose of the rebellion. These animals are Clover and Benjamin and Moses and a few pigs who are nameless. Snowball and Boxer by now have been long forgotten. They are erased from the collective memory on the farm. And it's worth noting that, just in the previous chapter, Benjamin was, on par to retire with Boxer, which would have been within a year. However, to this point, no animal has retired. They're all still working. So retirement was just an illusion, a promise that was made to them that never came into fruition. Napoleon and Squealer are certainly doing very well. They are both very large and fat. In fact, Squealer is so fat he could hardly see out of his eyes. Clover has taken some of the new members on the farm under her wing or under her horse leg, however you want to say it for an animal. There are now 3 other horses on the farm, and they're all very hardworking. They're all very loyal, but they're all very, very stupid. They could hardly read. They have no memory. They can't get beyond the letter B. So they're very nice and they're very hardworking, but they're also very stupid and very controlled. They don't question anything, they just accept it. The farm also itself has increased in size and it is better managed. You know, they've ironed out the kinks. The farm is turning a profit. Their mill is they're milling corn and getting a lot of money from it. However, the animals, besides the pigs and the dogs, are seeing no benefit from this. That was the whole concept of animalism, to prosper the animals, that all who were working would share equally the reward, that every animal would work to his own ability. No animal would be um, elevated among any other animal, that no animal would rule over any other animal. And yet, Napoleon is now telling these animals who are working so very hard and who are hungry and who have nothing to show for their hard work that the truest happiness lay in working hard and living frugally, which means living in a way that you are doing without. There is no abundance. It's just day to day, meal to meal, paycheck to paycheck. Again, the farm is getting richer, but it is only prospering the pigs and the dogs. The other animals are still suffering. It is stated in this chapter, and let's think back to chapter 1 because this is an echo, a convoluted echo of what Old Major was saying in his speech. He said that man is the only animal that takes without giving, that cannot sustain itself, who uses others for labor and consumes without giving. And now it is stating in chapter 10, ironically, that the pigs and dogs are very much the same way. It's written that neither pigs nor dogs produced any food by their own labor, and there were very many of them, and their appetites were always very good. So uh, the pigs and the dogs are really becoming more human-like. They're taking without contributing, and they're prospering from the toil, suffering, and labor of the workers. Despite their suffering, however, many of the animals are still very proud of Animal Farm, and they are unwaveringly loyal to Animal Farm. Squealer in this chapter takes the sheep away for several days, at least a week, and he tells the others that he's going to be focusing on their education. So no one sees the sheep for days and days and days. And one day, while they're all out in the yard, they see something that is just wild. And it's Squealer, and he is walking on his back 2 hind legs, just like a human would. And he is also carrying a whip in his trotter. And if you recall, whips are tools of oppression, they're symbols of oppression. And now it is a symbol of privilege and elevation and othering. And then all of a sudden, all the other pigs on the farm come out in the same fashion, walking on their back legs. And the sheep show up and they have taken on a new slogan. And now the sheep are chanting 4 legs good, 2 legs better. And then there's a change to the commandments because they've been changing all along. And now the commandments that are written on the barn wall, and we know that Squealer was the one altering them, even though they were meant to be unalterable. Now the commandment reads, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. And that just makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. You could take a kindergartner and cut up an apple, and the kindergartner knows the difference between amounts of an apple being equal or unequal. You cannot have anything being more equal. It just negates the concept of equality. Napoleon, in the meantime, has taken to strolling around the farm on his back legs and smoking a pipe, and the other pigs have begun wearing clothing. So, again, your symbols of privilege. The pigs are certainly privileged. The humans show up one day to socialize with the pigs. They get a personal tour of the farm, and the animals hide their faces as they're working because they are not sure if they should be more afraid of the pigs or the humans at this point, and that speaks volumes. Later on that evening, as they were all playing cards and drinking around the table in the farmhouse, Pilkington praises Napoleon and the farm, and he says he realizes just how similar they are now and how silly it was to have any bad blood between the humans and the pigs. He tells him in a sickeningly joking way that you have your lower animals to contend with, we have our lower classes. So there you go. You know, um, the privilege belongs to some, the hard work and labor and toiling and suffering belongs to others. And very rarely in society in the book do those putting in the work reap any benefit or reward from their efforts. Then Napoleon speaks, and he says he's very pleased that the humans and the pigs are on the same page. And in fact, he cannot take all the credit because the farm is co opted by the other pigs, meaning that they share in ownership and profit. And then he goes on to say that, you know, he doesn't understand why some things are the way they are, that these animals on the farm have these very foolish ways and customs that he's going to stop immediately. For instance, they walk around the farm and address others by comrade. They have a demonstration every Sunday where they march around the farm and past the flagpole, and they honor the skull of a dead boar that is just under the flagpole, and it's all very strange. And he doesn't understand why the green flag has symbols of a hoof and a horn when it should really just be a green flag. And oh, yeah, we could just stop calling it Animal Farm because the farm should be called by its proper original name, which is Manor Farm. And then the very last line in the book. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. And that's how the story ends. Corrupted. All right, so some of the questions that you submitted for chapter 10. The first question, why didn't any of the animals really retire? Well, I guess that's twofold. First, if they retire, they are no longer working and contributing, and they would be reaping the benefit of collective labor. So, retirement is everybody pays into a system, and when you reach the certain age, you are given your share for your contributions. It would be taking away from the profit of the pigs, it would be taking away from the labor force, and it is not possible not possible if the pigs are going to control the farm. It's a very nice idea, but it's not going to play out. They need everyone to work until they stop working because they're not alive anymore. And also, they're not willing to give any of their profit for the comfort and benefit of any other animal. All right, the second question: did all the pigs basically turn into humans after all these years? And metaphorically, yes. Metaphorically, the pigs have taken on all the mannerisms and ways of human beings, all the things that in the very beginning they hated, being oppressed, being abused, being forced to work, treated unfairly, having no rights, having no say. The humans were the ones oppressing the animals, and the the illusion that they could all live equally and freely and collectively and contribute equally, it didn't play out because there's always going to be someone who wants power and control, and others who need guidance and leadership. And so I think the takeaway here is it's very difficult to just set people or animals free and let them govern themselves, because equality is a very fragile and almost mythological thing. All right, your third question: what happened with the windmill? The windmill is finished, though it was not used to provide electricity for the animal stalls. A second windmill is now under construction. So the first windmill that is now standing, that has survived the test of time, is milling corn and making a profit on selling the corn. And they're going to build more windmills to make more profit. I think it would be wrong to assume that the windmills would generate electricity to make the animals' work any easier. And lastly, what is happening to the animals in the animal farm? We don't know. It just kind of ends. I guess history itself will tell us in real time how this plays out. But for the sake of the story, everything has come full circle back to the way it was when things were awful in the beginning. And that's the end of the story. All right, so these were great questions. You do have a review guide posted in the Google Classroom for the book as a whole, because we will be having an assessment over it. Our overarching concepts. So once again, we are touching on revisionist history. So the commandment has been altered, it's been revised, that all animals are equal. Now it says all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. That's your revision. And also Napoleon's recollection of events and customs on the farm as he's speaking to the humans. He flat out denies the the background of, the spontaneous demonstrations, the flag, the addressing the higher ups as comrade. So he's revised the true events as well. And lastly, our theme: the corruption of power. How Napoleon has complete and total control of the farm, how he has the power and he does whatever he wants with it, and he subjects everyone to his wrath and his reign. And that's very dangerous to give that much power to any one individual in any society. All right, so that's it for our lesson. Let's look at some of the questions that exist for Chapter 10 in the Google Classroom. So your questions have been winding down. This one, I have for you the 7 commandments as they originally were from the very beginning. The commandments took full effect in Chapter 2, and they clearly stated: whatever goes on 2 legs is an enemy, whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend, no animal shall wear clothes, no animal shall sleep in a bed, no animal shall drink alcohol, no animal shall kill any other animal, and all animals are equal. That is on the left side. On the right side, you're going to explain how the original commandment has been corrupted and altered over time. So on the left, This is what it says is how it's going to be. And on the right, the yellow, what really happens. And it's going to be the pigs who have violated and corrupted each and every single one of the commandments. I want to know what they do, what they did that was antithetical to the original commandment. And then your second question, why were the pigs so successful in achieving total domination over all of the animals on the farm? Why are they so successful in controlling every animal, every facet of life on the farm? It's something much deeper than they were simply the ones who could read and write. I want your best explanation for why they were able to pull this off and do what they did. All right. And lastly, in the Google Classroom, you still have your work. So whatever's missing, I need you to get caught up with it. You see our questions for today. You see our post reading that you should have done. And right here, you now have a test to review. So I would like you to review for the test that will be happening next week. I'd like you to type in the document and give answers to the questions, um, a little more information for each point, and be ready for the assessment over our last unit of the school year. So that's it. As always, if you have comments, questions, concerns, get a hold of me. You could message me on here. You could send an email. Many of your parents have my Google Voice information to send a text or a call. So get a hold of me. And that's it for today. I'll talk to you later. Bye.